Welcome, merry listeners, to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we unwrap the enchanting world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian dramas.
As we dive into these cinematic journeys, we're not just recapping, we're embarking on a therapeutic adventure.
Think of it as our cinematic self-care session.
And no, we're not just casual spectators. We're here to dissect the undercurrent messages, unravel the complexities, and even spot those not-so-magical moments of unhealthy behaviors.
And through it all, we'll be infusing our own unique perspectives and life experiences along the way.
Get ready to snuggle up as we explore the cheer, the charm, and the occasional cheesy wonder of these festive films. Welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini. I'm Lala, a non-French-speaking French-Canadian.
And I'm Nini, a first-generation ABC, that's American-born Chinese, that speaks broken Chinglish.
And if you're new to the Breaking Script podcast, we are sister-in-laws on a mission to spread joy and glimmers while offering ways to open windows of tolerance through watching Hallmark movies and The Way Home.
We have 4 unique segments that give you a guide to review, or what we like to call break script, with the healthy and unhealthy romantic and unhealthy and healthy family relationships, as well as behaviors in these movies. And actually, we have a The Way Home watching journal. We'll link it in our show notes that you can check it out. We always start with a movie summary or episode recap that has been likened by fans to an audio spa. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie or don't have access, they say it still feels like they watched the show or the movie, so that you can follow along with our Boba ratings and, of course, our 4 unique segments of Breaking Script, which help to magically turn your Hallmark movie or the Way Home watching experience into a more meaningful self-care session. I just feel like it was really appropriate that our Spring Into Love movie was about cars, because we've had quite an epic Cars weekend. Would you like to share?
Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know if I shared this back in December. I
think we mentioned it like in passing because we had like so much happening that was like, oh yeah, and our car got stolen.
Yeah. So back in December, mine and my husband's car got stolen out of our driveway in the middle of the night. Not a fun experience. And we actually had to wait for, I don't know what, like 2-3 months to actually get our car back, because it had to go through processing with the police, fingerprinting. It went to the tow yard. Then the tow yard had to send it to the actual dealership. And then the dealership was back ordered on the parts that they needed to fix our car. So we drive it was a 2022 Toyota Highlander, not an overly special car. And then we got the Highlander back about 5 weeks ago, and so happy to have it back. You know, life was back to normal. And then I went out to lunch with my parents at noon this past Friday, and I walk out from having lunch, jolly good time with my parents, and my car is missing out of the parking lot, and like total freak out.
Unbelievable.
There's part of me that's like, did I park in another place and I forgot that I moved the car? Anyways, I see
which we've done that. We've probably both done that.
Yeah. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that actually happened. But I saw I saw a broken glass on the ground. So I knew exactly what had happened. Thankfully, Toyota has a tracking app. Now, just for anyone interested, it can be disabled, but these dum-dums didn't disable it. And thankfully, my husband was able to, he wasn't with me, but we got into my parents' car, and we could see where it was. I called 911. I told them we were going to go find the car. They told us not to, but then they put us on hold. So then we just started driving. And my parents, I tell you, it was out of a movie. Like, everyone's yelling at each other. It was not our proudest moment. Like, it was very stressful. I don't know why my mom was driving. Well, my dad.
We need to write a treatment for
seriously.
this.
So then we actually find the car parked on a random street about 10 minutes away. Seems like it was just like a drop and dump there. Like, they were probably going to go pick it up that night. We're staking out the car. The police finally get back on the phone with me, and they were like, we're going to send 4 plainclothes officers to the area. And they're like, I was like, oh, that's great because I see the car. And they were like, what? You need to get out of there right now. This could be very dangerous. And then, I'm like, okay, drive. And now we're all yelling at each other. My mom is taking the wrong turn. We're lost in this neighborhood. And I think there's going to be guns. Like, I'm scared. My dad doesn't know where we are. Like, he's trying to direct. Nobody, anyways, we finally, we get out of the area. And long story short, the police were able to find the car and take the car in. If you are not from Canada, probably specifically Ontario and the Greater Toronto area, you might not realize that it is a real issue here right now of cars being stolen. So what has come to light in the past few months is that Canada doesn't monitor cargo containers that leave on ships. Like there's no like border patrol the way that you would like
Unreal.
screen, I
Yeah.
guess, what you do in the US. So what's happening is these organized crime rings are typically hiring young kids, like juvenile detention age children. And they're whizzes at getting these cars. It's specifically cars with the push button, power on button.
Yeah.
And they're getting these cars and they're putting them on these shipping containers and they're just shipping them out of the country and selling them. And like, this is a real problem. So we found out that where our car was actually stolen from, that in the past 3 months, 170 cars had been stolen from that plaza. And we were the
Wait,
first
just
car,
that plaza alone?
just that plaza alone. And we were the first car to be recovered, which, I really am like, the Lord is on our side here. Like, won't he do
Amen.
it? And so
Won't he do it?
when my husband was talking to the police, I mean, I've never seen a very I feel like police are very like, leveled emotion. So as
Yeah.
excited as a leveled emotion person could be, my husband said that he seemed excited and said that we were the first break in their lead in the case that they had. So they took our car, they fingerprinted it to hopefully like, identify. And yes, so unfortunately, at least where we live, Toyota Highlanders are like one of the top 5 vehicles stolen. I think it's just because it's
Crazy.
very easy for them to steal. So we had to come to the decision to let go of the vehicle and get something else. We got something that we're told doesn't get stolen. So it was a very, interesting weekend. Like, we're still kind of dealing with
Understatement.
it. Yeah, today
Yeah.
I still have insurance stuff to do, but
So surreal. We just wrote our
right?
own Hallmark mystery movie
Right?
this weekend. We seriously, between our two families, we got stories, y'all. Like,
So true.
really could be entertaining. Stories that just, you're like, that's not real.
Right?
Didn't happen
I know.
that way. I'm just putting off talking about the way home. That's how the way home felt. Isn't that real? It's like, anyway. But shifting gears, by the way, I need to
Wow,
find out
nice
when it's on the
pun.
W. Yeah.
That was a good one.
Oh, pun wasn't intended, but shifting gears to shifting gears was the Spring Into Love, kicked off of Spring Into Love movies on Hallmark Channel. It was super important because it was the first movie in the Make Her Mark director program. Crystal Lowe did a fantastic job. When I heard her interviews before, I was like, girl, are we like best friends? She's really into color theory. And she was inspired because she loved, when she was asked, I can't remember who interviewed, so I'm sorry. I'll give the shout out to the podcast later. I listened to so many Crystal Lowe interviews this last week. When she was asked like her favorite rom-coms, she listed To All the Boys I've Ever Loved. And I was like, oh, are we besties? Like, because she loved the color theory. So did I. That was like one of my favorites. Love the color and To All the Boys. And so she applied color theory to shifting gears, which I totally felt. I love the Rosie Riveter feels that they gave to Kat Burrell, the female lead. But anyways, shifting gears. We're going to have to, what are we going to do next? We need to discuss this. Should we just discuss this here? We've been
Why not?
rushed in our recording sessions. We haven't had as much catch up time. But are some options. Like, are we going
Oh.
to do the Spring into Love movies?
Okay.
Are we going to do When Calls the Heart?
Hmm.
Or are we going to switch to Asian dramas and reality? Because basically, this is like the countdown to Christmas. Because obviously, we're going to be doing Countdown to Christmas that starts in September.
Mm-hmm.
Hallmark also has Christmas in July.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to talk about this. You guys want to weigh in? You can comment on our YouTube. Weigh in. Comment on our YouTube channel. In honor of the Hynes this week, Deck the Hallmark reviewed Shifting Gears on their podcast, and they opened their podcast with "Welcome back, Hynes," because apparently the Hynes come back just to listen to the Tyler Hynes episodes.
That's funny.
So the hashtag Hynes shout out. I actually made a playlist of our just movies about Tyler Hynes
Smart
episodes.
Brilliant.
So are we going to do that? Are we going to go through and be like, let's watch all the Tyler Hynes movies? Because I saved some good ones for,
okay.
the next season.
I think the Tyler Hynes piques my interest, but also like maybe some Asian dramas, reality shows. I love a good like Singles Inferno, Love After Divorce, Terrace House, all the, that's my jam.
I know. Weigh in, guys. What do you want to hear us review, recap, break script with? Because the Spring into Love movies, I know you struggled with those a little bit, but there are some Hallmark mystery movies, but it's only one a month. Because the next Spring into Love movie is called Easter Bloom. It's a day spring movie. I love Jesus, but I don't really love day spring movies.
Yeah, that does not appeal to me. But I would be down to do some spring Hallmark stuff. I feel like maybe I could massage that muscle again. It was really worked out during Christmas, but we've kind of it's kind of been dormant for a while. So we got to start to exercise that Hallmark movie muscle.
I have to say, so the day spring one was with Amy Teagarden and Benjamin Hollingsworth, which, did you watch Virgin River?
Yes, I did.
Benjamin Hollingsworth is the sister's boyfriend, like super hot and heavy couple. But he plays the pastor in an Easter Bloom, so that might be a little rough to go from Virgin River to that. But I heard it. Dear Hallmark did an interview with him, and they talked about an Easter Bloom, and he talked about how like he was raised Catholic, and kind of this movie kind of helped him get back in touch with his roots. So I was like, bless him.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Blind Date Book Club is the one I'm looking forward to because that's Aaron Krakow and Robert Buckley.
Okay. That sounds good.
Anyway, we'll talk about it. You guys weigh in. We need to dive into this. I want to let you guys know, if you skip our audio recaps, the recaps we read for The Way Home are actually written by Hallmark. And I have to say, sometimes it answers questions for the way we see it,
Yes, they do have a little bit of clarity. And I just have to say that I love listening to you read them. I think your voice is very soothing. It's like my favorite part. It's very relaxing.
I didn't even know you listened to it.
I do.
Oh, wait, because you have to edit.
Yeah, I edit our show. So I definitely listen. But yeah, I think you do a great job. So guys, you don't want to miss Nini's.
Thank you. I interject things and I correct things because sometimes the recaps are incorrect.
I did notice that. Also, it's just more soothing to me. It gives me a bit of ASMR, if I'm being honest.
Oh.
Yeah.
ASMR. I think I want to experiment with that a little bit more.
I think you should. I think you have a very ASMR voice. Anyways, okay, moving on. Let's do it.
This is the part of the episode where we have an audio spa-like recap of Season 2, Episode 9 of The Way Home, where all three Landry women feel the absence of a key ally in their lives as they struggle to make life-altering decisions and choices. This episode is called Here Without You. At the Lingermore Masquerade Party in 2007, Kat is face down, injured in the pool, mirroring another episode this season, as Brady jumps in to rescue her, and he has Elliot call 911. Later, at Elliot's house, Nick tries to calm Elliot down. Elliot says this wasn't supposed to happen, and he's changed things. Nick asks Elliot to explain, but Elliot shoves him and punches a hole in the wall. The hole is from Elliot, not from Victor. In present day, Elliot's staring at that hole in the wall, and Nick tries to get Elliot to talk to him and explain the booklet of time travel notes. Kat cannot believe Elliot knew all about Alice's trips back then, and Nick can't believe that Kat's kid and his Alice are the same person, which they confirm. As Dell reviews the Goodwin's land offer, she has a flashback to sitting in bed with Colton and young Jacob. Jacob shows a map of what he plans to grow on the land when he becomes a farmer. He wants to turn the pond into a big fish tank, but Colton reminds him that the pond is off limits, even to the farmers. At the hospital in 2007, Alice finds a young Kat recovering. Kat isn't awake, but Alice tells her she's so sorry. Alice is worried what will happen to them and tells Kat she's brave and she needs to fight. Young Brady speaks to a doctor outside, and Alice hides while Brady sits at Kat's bedside. In 2024, at the Landry house, Brady tells Kat that he called and left messages that he was coming. Dell had sent him the land sales agreement to review, and he wanted to come deal with it in person. Dell comes downstairs and hugs Brady. Brady asks to see Alice, and Kat says Alice is at a sleepover with friends. He asks if they can do dinner, and she says, yes, maybe. Back at Elliot's, Nick works to unpack Alice's time travel, and Nick wonders why Elliot let him fall for Alice when he knew the truth the whole time, but Elliot knows Nick wouldn't have believed him. In 2007, Kat finally wakes up in the hospital bed and tells Brady that the last thing she remembers is talking to Elliot at the party. Then the doctor suddenly enters and tells Kat, congratulations, she and the baby are just fine. Kat and Brady learn that she is pregnant for the first time, with Alice. And Brady asks Kat if she will marry him for real this time, as Alice watches from a nearby room. Kat tells Brady she had a dream about her friend Alice, and if it's a girl, Kat wants to name the baby Alice. Alice turns around and sees young Elliot waiting with flowers, and after he sees them, he leaves. Back in present day at the Landry house, Elliot tells Kat how she and Alice spoke at the Lingermore party in 2007. Kat doesn't remember seeing Alice there and tells Elliot that she needs to get back to Alice. Kat jumps in the pond, but of course ends up in 1814 instead of 2007. Thomas Coyle is waiting at the pond's edge as Susanna and Jacob approach. Susanna relays to Kat that Thomas offered Cyrus his services in full to spare Jacob's life so they don't have to live in hiding. Jacob thanks Kat for the lengths she went through to save him. At Elliot's house in present day, Alice passes by and Elliot asks about her trip. She's angry. She tells him everything has changed and that she needs to find her mom. Alice cannot believe Elliot tried to erase her, and she tells him she's never speaking to him again. In 1814, at the Landry house, Jacob reunites with Elijah Landry and his whole family. Elijah thanks Thomas and Kat. In present day, Alice frantically texts her mom. Brady enters, and Alice wonders where her mom is. Brady tells Alice he's concerned that Kat isn't putting Alice first. Alice questions Brady about whether he and Kat got married solely because Kat was pregnant with her. They had to sacrifice so much for her, like Kat's graduate school in London. Brady assures Alice he doesn't know what would have happened if she didn't come along, but she did. And there was love there. In 1814, at the Landry house, Kat observes to Susanna that Jacob has a beautiful life here. Kat tells Susanna that she is a Landry for the first time, and that Jacob grew up on this land in her time. Kat reveals this is the same home she lives in present day with the same fireplace. Elijah enters and asks for a word with Catherine. Back in present day, at the pond, Elliot tries to talk to Nick, who is pondering by the water's edge. He tells Elliot that after everything they've been through, Nick feels like he doesn't know Elliot at all. Nick thinks Elliot kept the information about time travel to himself to feel smarter and more superior than others, just like his father, Victor. Ouch. In 1814, Elijah asks Kat what happens next now that Jacob has returned. Kat questions Elijah about Jacob's hidden shoe that she found, and Elijah brings up the 1814 almanac. He tells Kat that he wanted to record everything, births, deaths, etc. Kat wonders why Jacob wasn't listed in here as Elijah's son, and Elijah tells Kat that Jacob is their fairy tale, and his story demands more than one line. He shows Kat the story he wrote down of Jacob's arrival to them. Rebecca thought the pond granted her wish of a son when theirs died, and she hid his clothing and brought Jacob home. Rebecca only told Elijah the truth of finding Jacob when she was on her deathbed, and when Kat arrived in 1814, it finally all made sense to Elijah. He fears now that Kat is trying to take Jacob home with her. When Jacob enters in and hears their conversation, He is appalled that Elijah and Rebecca knew this whole time and kept it a secret from him. Jacob rips Elijah's writing from the almanac, the same almanac that currently sits in the Landry house present day with ripped out pages. Back at the Landry house in present day, Dell sits with the dog Finn and looks through old items in her room. She finds a drawing done by young Jacob and has a flashback to talking with him about his mama mail. He says he calls it that because he's sending her a message to let her know that he's here and he loves her. At the pond in 1814, Kat sits with Jacob as he recalls Dell and Colton and how they love to dance. Kat tells Jacob that he is actually the reason why the Landrys even settled and stayed in Port Haven, and it's the reason why they even have a family. Jacob says the pond was calling him, even though he knew he wasn't allowed to go near it. Kat asks Jacob to come with her to present day. She tells him that Dell has been waiting for so long. When Jacob asks about their dad, Kat tells him that he looked for him until the end. Then Jacob says he isn't coming home. He spent his life in the 1800s and he belongs there. If he jumps and sees the other place, he doesn't know what will happen. He tells her to visit and spend time with him in 1814 or in the 1800s, but that has to be enough. Susanna approaches then. Kat wonders what to tell Dell, and Jacob says she will understand. He will make sure of it. So Jacob heads back home and writes on the ripped out almanac. That line in the margin, the explorer found a home, but he still looks to the stars when he feels lost. He wants Dell to see it as a letter to her, to know that he's here and he loves her. In the woods, Susanna asks Kat what it's like in her time and if the women there are more like Kat. Susanna wants to go with Kat in Jacob's place, so they decide to hold hands and jump in the pond together. However, the pond doesn't take them to the future. Back at the Landry house in 1814, Kat and Susanna try off, and Kat apologizes that the pond wouldn't take them. Kat thought for sure it would. Susanna says she won't question the pond's magic, and Kat tells her that she herself is magic. Susanna assures Kat that she's been given friendship, kindness, and inspiration, and it's been a fairy tale, but Kat wonders how Susanna will get her own fairy tale ending. Susanna says she won't let Jacob marry her, as it would be unfair to both of them. She tells Kat the more that she sees of this world, she's more convinced she will never find a man whom she can really love. She will be a mistress of herself. A quote from her favorite book, Sense and Sensibility, which is written by an unnamed female author. Susanna says this book makes her want to write, but she wants her name on it and for the world to know who she is, and because of Kat, she knows that this is possible. Kat says that she needs what they have in her time, but Susanna says she can miss her then. And when Kat does miss her, to go to the fireplace. It will be their constant in midst of change. Kat holds Susanna's hands as Susanna says their hands will touch through time. Thomas walks in and walks Kat back to the pond as she thanks him for keeping Jacob safe. Kat tells Thomas that part of her heart is here now, and Thomas asks to carry a part of her heart with him, and they say goodbye. In present day, Kat enters the Landry house, and she and Alice hug and reunite while Brady looks on. Upstairs later, Kat and Alice catch up in Alice's room as they get ready for bed. Kat doesn't know how to tell Dell about Jacob. She also wants Alice to know that having her was the best choice she made, and Elliot does care very much for Alice despite what he did when they were younger. Alice asks why Dell and Kat didn't talk after Lingermore, but Kat doesn't give an answer. In the Landry kitchen the next morning, Alice wants to talk about Lingermore with Dell and Kat, but they don't. So Alice leaves, and Kat questions Dell about why she cares so much what the Goodwins think of them. She tells Dell that just because the Goodwins kept their name out of the papers when the 2007 Lingermore event happened doesn't mean that Dell still owes Evelyn. Dell has a flashback to meeting Evelyn at the Point Cafe to discuss the 2007 party. Evelyn tells Dell she's pressing charges against Kat and Elliot, and Dell pleads with her not to. She says they're young and this will ruin their futures. She asks Evelyn not to do it for Colton, and Evelyn agrees. As she leaves, Evelyn tells Dell that she owes her now, as if she didn't already. At Elliot's house, Elliot tells Nick he's been thinking about what he said to him at the pond. Nick apologizes and said he can't stay to help with renovations as he has to get back to Claire, who might want to get back together. Elliot tells Nick he misses Colton, who was the father he never had and took him for granted. Elliot tells Nick he's not going to take their friendship for granted. Brothers forever. In the Landry kitchen, Brady confesses to Kat that he was going to ask Alice to come back with him to Minneapolis. But Brady knows that the bond between mother and daughter is strong, and he tells Kat that she's a great mom. Brady wonders why Kat didn't tell him about London when they were younger, and Kat tells him that her life changed in that hospital room. In 2007, Alice watches Elliot as he greets Kat coming home from the hospital. Kat tells Elliot that she doesn't remember much and that she and Brady are leaving soon. She apologizes and quickly says goodbye to Elliot. Kat and Brady go to speak with Del, but Del gets a call and Kat sends Brady to the car. Del tells Kat that she spoke with Evelyn Goodwin and made sure that she won't press charges. Kat gives Del a check from Brady's parents for her to keep the farm, and Del wonders if this means Kat's coming home, but she tells Del that her life is in Minneapolis with Brady, and so Del rejects the money. And she goes on to say that it should be Jacob that is here, and that it should have been Jacob fighting to save the farm. With that, Kat is hurt and takes Colton's guitar and leaves. Brady asks if she told Del about the baby. When Kat says Del doesn't deserve to know the baby, Del overhears it. At Elliot's, Alice apologizes to Elliot and forgives him now that she saw what happened. Elliot reveals that adult Nick is there and he knows everything about her time travel. Nick tells Alice that he only ever thought about how hard it was for him and not her, and he wishes someone told him. Alice feels like her timing and age is always off and she doesn't belong anywhere, and Nick tells her she deserves to find someone here in her own time. As Alice leaves, she tells Nick that it wasn't such a terrible thing, and that night at the Cove meant a lot to her. Did any of us need that? I don't know. At the Landry's on the porch, Del signs the Goodwins land agreement, the sale land agreement. And Alice tells Del she knows what pulled her and Kat apart back then. Del tells Alice that she didn't mean the words she said to Kat, and that she did everything she could to keep the land back then. For Alice. Del assures Alice that they will always have the house, the history, and each other. Jacob helps remind Del that land comes and goes, but family is forever. At Elliot's, he tells Kat that Nick left after his catch-up with Alice. Over wine, Kat explains to Elliot that she wanted to go to London with him, and on that night at Lingermore, she saw Elliot from the staircase and fell a bit in love. She tells him that much like their kiss the other night, it ended before it began. But Elliot tells Kat that he meant that kiss. He wants them to be on the same page with no secrets, so he gives Kat the notes he took on the time travel. Kat tells Elliot she'll read it, but she already knows how the story ends. Del sells the land and Jacob won't come home. Kat tells Elliot that she tried to bring Susanna back since the pond allowed Finn to travel with a human, but it didn't work. Elliot tells Kat that Nick said they missed the best part of the ghost tour, when Rita was clinking together chains pretending to be the ghost of an escaped convict who was caught smuggling in the War of 1812. This person was executed by British soldiers. Kat realizes it wasn't chains, it was coins, so that must be Thomas. At the Herald, Kat scours the records with Elliot. Again, she wonders if the clinking chains Rita mentioned were actually coins like the ones Thomas was always fiddling with. Kat finds a T-coil in the execution records and gets ready to leave. Elliot reminds her that she can't stop this, but Kat at least wants to say goodbye to Thomas. And that is a wrap for the penultimate episode of The Way Home, Season 2.
Now is a part of our episode where we give this episode of The Way Home a rating out of 10 bobas. Okay, Nini, episode 9. What did you rate this episode?
It's deep breaths here. I am in uber denial that this is the penultimate episode.
Right?
It probably deserves I don't know if it deserves a low rating. I feel very torn. I love The Way Home. I believe in it. I believe that episode 10 could save the entire season, and season 3 is going to knock it out of the ballpark. I had to give this episode an 8. It's possibly lower. It's just because I love all the people so much, but I have to say, like, it has an 8 because I didn't need the Nick and Alice storyline.
Okay.
I didn't say that's what I was texting you about, but I was hoping you'd figure that because Lala watched after I did.
I had to watch it after. Okay. I also gave it an 8.
You did?
Yes. And that's why, I mean, you guys are listening, but like Nini paused because my mouth opened because I was like, we're not usually always aligned on our score.
True.
But I also, this is kind of crazy. I also felt very torn because I'll just say, and this is kind of part of my glimmer, but this episode had moved a lot faster. There was a lot
Yeah.
more things, which felt more to me like season 1. And
Sure.
which is why I really liked it. To me, it had more season 1 vibes, but
Yes.
I also felt on the flip side of the coin was that there wasn't a lot of like the things that were being talked about didn't have a lot of development.
Yeah.
Just like if we're already there talking about Nick and Alice,
Yeah.
like
I
it
didn't
was
need that.
I didn't need it. I'm also like, okay, so he knows about the pond. He doesn't want to try to jump in. Like he just is accepting that that's the old like I, some of the stuff just didn't add up for
Yeah.
me.
It wasn't like a
Um
10 out of 10. Like,
exactly. But I
yeah,
liked
exactly.
for me I prefer the movement in the show and the storyline moving more than sitting in one scene or one thing the entire time.
Totally. I get it.
But I want to start out though, just bravo to you because you literally called the to the T of what
What
happened
happened?
with Kat. Like you literally said, Kat
Yeah.
is gonna go to the hospital, and that's when
Yeah.
she's gonna find out she's pregnant with Alice.
Yeah.
And
It's what happened.
it happened. And that's
Listen,
what brought them back together. Kat
I
and
think maybe
Brady.
it's because what happens in our lives should be on TV because that was based on a real life experience from Nini's life. It's happened before where someone's sick and you go to the hospital and you find out you had a baby.
Yeah.
Listen to episode 8 for that one. Um, but at the same time, I felt like, okay, this is how I feel like the way home. I wrote down that the big events weren't big enough for TV. Like I've had these discussions because I have so
Mm-hmm.
many friends that are like, Nini, you really need to make your life story. Like so many of these stories need to be
Right?
either episodes for television or some of it needs to be like a feature film. I can't even, I've had people tell us that since like high school.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
very flatline show.
yeah, it feels like because some of our like things that happen in our lives, people are like, it's not even believable for TV.
Mm,
Um, but also like I realize like if I were to tell it, it also isn't big enough for TV. Like it seems unreal and not believable enough. Not believable, but not believable enough. I'm not saying it correctly. I need to rework that and bring it back to you next week of what I'm trying to say. Um, that's what I feel like the way home is. Do we just need to get into
let's
breaking script?
let's do it.
Our first of 4 segments is Home Sweet Home, where we talk about glimmers and what we love, breaking down the romantic and family relationships. I do love that the cold open was more reminiscent of what I expect from a The Way Home cold
Yeah.
open, right? Where this is where it's like we expect the unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
where the hole in the wall that we thought was put there by Victor wasn't Victor.
Yes.
It was Elliot, and you
Yep.
flash from the past to the present. They're in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
I needed more of those, but that was like the only one we got where it's like
Yeah.
it wasn't what we expected. Everything else in this episode felt like it was too on the nose.
Exactly. That's why it had a lot of like again, the story moved quickly, which I appreciate because for me, I don't like sitting in a scene for like you go from a scene, then you come back to the scene and it feels like you're still in the same point, like there's no movement.
Yeah.
This felt
Yeah.
like there was a lot of movement, but the development felt
Flat.
yeah, like
For
exactly what you said.
instance, if we're going to talk about, I feel like, okay, we're in the penultimate episode. Let's talk about the family relationships. Jacob and Kat hugged, which, should be a glimmer and what we love.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here to talk about relationships, but it felt, again, flat. We need a new word for this. Like, it felt too like, ugh, what
Yeah.
Bran on Deck the Hallmark called like, this is convenient. I need you to be more intentional and develop more of like, it felt sad of like what it must have felt like to watch your brother's familiarity. He's so much closer with Thomas and Elijah.
Right.
Like you feel like strangers. And that hug was just so like, that hug was awkward and unexpected, but not in a good way. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, I needed something different in that interaction after all this time. And that's who we've been looking for 2 seasons. Like,
Oh, I totally. You know what it
that
reminds
can't
me
be
of?
it.
It
What?
okay. I'm on a big Law and Order kick right now. Okay. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm like into because sorry guys, sidetracking
Which
here,
one?
Bunny Trail.
Yeah.
Well, I'm into 3 of them right now because how I got back into it is they just came out with a Law and Order Toronto.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
kind of how I got back into Law and Order. So I watched Law and Order.
Mhm.
Organized Crime is my favorite one actually, with Elliot Stabler, who I felt like when I was on my own chase to find my car, I felt like a Law and Order detective. That's probably why it was so impactful, because I've been watching Law and Order nonstop and I knew what to do. Um,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
the best
I'm
one, but
dying.
it's not my favorite. Again, Organized Crime is my favorite, but I just think that SVU, Mariska Haggerty,
Yeah.
Olivia Benson does the best acting. Oh my gosh. And just feeling the emotion. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I was just watching an episode and she's like the hugging a stranger, and you can see the emotion, the relief, like all of these things, the awkwardness, yet the love. Like, they need her to coach them on feeling the emotions. Like,
Oh
that's what
my
we want to
goodness.
feel. We know it's an awkward situation, but it's your brother that you've never seen, that you've never hugged. You know what I mean? Like, we need more chemistry. Anyways, so all
I
that.
don't know. I feel like it's the writing. I don't feel like it's Kat's, because I feel like Kyler
Mm.
Lee brought it.
Okay,
Kyler
sorry,
Lee and
Tyler Lee,
Evan
but
Williams, like their
she
face
she
acting is fantastic.
she did. She is really good. Then
I
maybe
think it's the
Detective
writing.
Olivia Benson needs to coach Jacob, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe there's just not chemistry between the two actors either.
Well, I think what they're portraying is what's in the writing is there's a distance between them. There
Well,
isn't a chemistry. And I think
yes,
that's the problem is
but you don't
that's
feel like there
written
should
in the
be
story.
any connection of a brother, that because the connection with Kat and Jacob was so strong in the younger years, right? Like there would be some spark,
But I
something that
think that's what they're
holds you
trying to
together.
portray is that it's not, so that we're okay with leaving Jacob in the
Hmm.
1800s, which Dan from Deck the Hallmark seems to think that this show is going to disappoint him by bringing, like, because Jacob said that he's not going back, that in the finale Jacob's going to go back to 2024, which I'm like,
Oh,
"Mm,
I have a different theory, but okay.
okay, can't
Sorry.
wait.
Let's
Next,
okay,
go
keep
ahead."
going. I only have 2 glimmers. I can just
Okay,
tell you that.
great.
So my
Let's do
only
it.
glimmers, again, which is what I've repeated now, this will be the 3rd time, but I felt like it was
Yes.
more closely aligned to season 1 in the movement. Um, but it had a lot of moving pieces. But my biggest glimmer is, I think, some of the missing pieces of history came together for
Yeah.
us. Like, we learned why Kat and Dell didn't speak for 17 years, and like why it was so big for them to come back together, and even the awkwardness and the distance between them. And then we learn about the hole in the wall, and then
Yeah.
also some stuff with Nick. Like, we're just
And the
history.
page ripped out of the
The
almanac.
page ripped out of the almanac, and the quote that it was actually left for Dell. Like, it was a letter to his
The
mother.
mama mail, which
Yes.
they included that part about the mama mail. Again, about all of these things that we just mentioned. It's like what you were saying about, like, when you finally found out about the Lingermore party and what was the bad thing that we've been waiting for, and you're
Mm.
like, "Wait, that was it?"
Yeah.
That's how I felt about all those that we just mentioned.
I
Like,
could do without the mama mail, because I feel like
same.
the mama mail was too on the nose. And I think if he had just written the quote as a letter, we would have all got it. We would have all been like, oh my gosh, like we didn't need to contextualize him writing letters to Dell, the
Unless there
mama
was more
mail.
meaning to it. Like, that's the
Exactly.
thing. It fell flat, but it doesn't totally fit either. Like,
Exactly.
it's not the way home magic here.
No,
The mama mail didn't fit for me.
no.
Because I also, it's in my dead ends, but I'll just say it now. Like, I still don't get how that Dell's gonna read that quote as a letter from Jacob, because she
It doesn't
hasn't
say
up
dear
until this
mom.
point.
I literally thought the same thing.
Well, and she hasn't up until this point. So how is that going to change now? Um, I let's talk about maybe this is more surprising detours. Okay, my last 2 are surprising detours now that I
Okay.
realize it. Do you have anything else in the home sweet home? Because that's all I got. Like, we don't, all the relationships, we're gonna have to like recap all the relationships in the finale. Um, Because I feel like, which one do you care about at this point
Yeah.
that you want to know more or how it ends?
It's
This silence is not good.
I
This
know.
blank space on a audio
Well,
audio
okay.
format is not good.
No, but those are all the glimmers that I had. So like I'm
Are we moving on?
I think we should move on.
Okay. This is what made me sad, which is why I thought my 8 could have been lower. Okay, let me say this because I
Okay.
have a couple of glimmers, but it's actually surprising detours.
Okay.
I forgot. Remember last week when I said the last episode was Gilmore Girls 3.0?
Yes.
It had so many nods to Gilmore Girls. What I forgot is because the episode that it gave the nod to was Keg and titled Keg and Max.
Yeah.
Kat is to Elliot as Lorelai is to
Ooh.
Max. You know those episodes? They're
Oh.
passionate kisses and this like back and forth. Like, come on
Yes.
now.
You're right. I never thought
Like
the Max thing, but you're right.
Kat and Elliot need a Lorelai and Max rule of like whatever Max said, the 6-foot rule. Max was social distancing before social distancing was a thing. They need to just be able to talk without kissing.
You're right.
Like,
Yeah.
they need this. Oh my gosh, did I tell you? I forgot to tell you. I found this therapist, Asian Canadian.
Okay.
I think she's Vietnamese. That does I think it's just her YouTube channel where she does like a psychoanalysis
Okay.
of Gilmore Girls. Selling Sunset and Love is Blind. I'm like, who is this girl? We need to be
Ooh.
friends. I feel like maybe she needs to guest on this pod.
I was just thinking that.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, can we fit any better? Okay. Anyways, that brought me joy when I don't know how I stumbled on that when I was like, oh my gosh, this episode's like Lorelai Max. Anyways, but that's really a surprising detour because it just tells us that Kat and Elliot's relationship is probably most likely not a healthy one. So
Mhm.
should we just move on to surprising detours?
Yes.
Which is our second segment where we talk about the surprises, because there's usually a lot of them in the way home,
Lots.
and unhealthy behaviors or coping mechanisms. I had a red flag from last week that I
Okay.
didn't get to talk about that I said remind me to talk about this week.
Okay. Go ahead.
When Elliot asked about Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
because he said Kat doesn't talk about him, girl, that is like such a real life experience. I cannot tell you how many women I've talked to, and I've had my own experiences where it's like, I can just tell, call it a check in your spirit, call it a red flag, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Have you ever experienced that before where you just know by the way someone talks about someone or doesn't talk about someone? It could be both ways. It could be either they mention the person but don't tell enough about them, or they talk too much about them that
Yes.
gives you
The ick.
a feeling.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, that's totally what that was between Kat and Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I want to talk about is the way that Brady has just surprised us in so many episodes where you're not expecting him to show up and he just like suddenly shows up.
Wait, does this mean are you like warming to him, or you're just saying like you're surprised like every time he appears
No,
you're like,
this
oh yeah,
is
you
not
exist.
a good surprise.
Oh.
Like, it's a surprising detour, but it is not a good surprise. I just want to say this because Dan from Deck the Hallmark, gosh, I'm referencing them so much in this episode, feels like out of this entire season, now Brady is the healthiest, most mature adult, gave me all kinds of triggers because that is so typical narcissist. So I'm pulling out the omo nardar here. I feel like I need this beto like siren. Because the way that divorce and the way that you are expected or not expected to like interact with in-laws is not a certain way. And I think that it's really important, especially when dealing with a narcissist, to remember that the charm comes on for a reason. Like, it's cyclical and it's part of the Jekyll Hyde trauma bonding. It can actually be weaponized that there's a relationship between an ex and a mother-in-law.
Wow.
That is weaponized against Kat, for instance, in this experience. So I just wanted to point that out, that is very typical, very real life. Like, where everyone's like, oh, but he's now so mature and the charming one. No,
Hmm.
no, my friend. That is super, super false. Okay.
Right.
That is just, and of course, this is just a show.
Right.
It's just what they're portraying. I'm just saying this is what it can be. I'm not saying it is that way every single time. But I just want to put that in there. Okay. Would you like to rapid fire some surprising detours now?
Okay, I have a list. So obviously
Okay.
we said Nick knows about the pond. He also has a very awkward conversation with Alice, and then he just leaves, which I think is so bizarre. Jacob and
Yes.
Kat have a really, supposed to be like a sentimental moment where they hug and
It's
they're
not.
it's not. And then they're sitting at the pond, they're talking about their life, and then Jacob tells Kat he doesn't want to go to the future, which stab to the heart, like you can feel the pain. We also find out why Jacob is erased from history books because he pulled the entry out that Elijah wrote about them finding him or the story of their son. We also find what we said, Jacob leaves a message for Dell about the stars quote that Kat finds in season 1. Kat tries to bring Susanna to the future, which
I can't tell if this is surprising detours or dead ends because I feel like this could be
I
like
agree.
the same segment.
Yes, that was weird for me, and I'll talk about that
Yes.
in dead ends because I have some thoughts. Thomas Coyle says he would like to carry a piece of Kat's heart. Are we really surprised? We find out that Evelyn did not press charges on the teens for the party at Lingermore, and that's why Dell owes the Goodwins. But she also said something ominous at the end as Evelyn is leaving and says to Dell, "You owe me." As if you didn't already. What is that as if you didn't already? Like, what else does she,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Brady and Kat give Dell a check in the past, but Dell
In the
refuses it.
2007.
Thank you. And then Dell says something very hurtful to Kat, and she just says, like, it should be Jacob here fighting for the farm, and kind of dismisses Kat.
And that's why they don't talk for
that's
17 years.
Yeah. And then also Kat, says that like she did. Sorry, Brady asked Kat if she told her mom about the baby, and Kat says she doesn't deserve to know, and that's why the 17 years of silence. Dell signs the land away, and then Kat finds Thomas Coyle's name on the execution list, and that was my surprising detours.
It's a lot. Well, Elijah and Rebecca had a son that passed, and then Jacob appears with the same last name, but Rebecca kept it a secret until her deathbed.
So was that
Jacob didn't know they knew? Like, what?
Do you think that was the lady in the very first scene?
That's part of the way we see it because, I mean, we'll just say, like, in that very first scene, Jacob is a young boy.
Yeah.
Right? And Rebecca, that lady looked old. It's not the same Rebecca. It doesn't make sense.
That's what I keep going back to is who was the older lady?
It makes no sense. Make it make sense, which I'm sure well, no, I'm not. I'm like 80% sure that we'll find out. Because there's just so many questions about all those things that you just rapid fired. Like, for instance, why was this the first time that Kat told Susanna that she's a Landry? Like, there's so many in Surprising Detours because we talk about unhealthy behaviors and relationships. A lot of my questions are just that. Like, I don't understand how you're trying to portray these relationships because there's a level of familiarity because of how often Kat is going back to the 1800s and has spent days there. Right? Like, and days are passing. She's missing for days in 2024.
Yeah.
And there's this level of familiarity between her and Susanna of like they're BFFs now to the same level that Teen Alice and Teen Kat were BFFs, right?
Yes.
I know that that's what they're trying to parallel.
But it's not it's not coming across
connecting.
to us. Yes,
it's not connecting. Like, you're trying to portray it, but it's not connecting because how has all this time passed? All this trauma, and you're just now telling her that you're a Landry and you live in the same house. Like, that doesn't connect for me.
I know.
I realize this is also dead ends, but we're talking about healthy and unhealthy behaviors. So if you're really going to portray that as a story, then that would be an unhealthy part. Like, we obviously have communication issues in all of these relationships because, and maybe this is the way we see it, but I'm just going to bring it up here because this is about relationships. When Thomas says to Kat, perhaps you let me carry a part of your heart. I feel like that could have been interpreted like, did they do this on purpose? Am I the only one, or did other people interpret this the same way as well? Where they were talking about Jacob. She was saying,
Mm.
thank you for taking care of Jacob. I've left a piece of my heart here. Was she just referring to Jacob? And then, that Jacob's a part of Kat's heart and that's what she's leaving there. And then Thomas
Mm.
was assuming he would, or like flirting and saying, let me carry a part of your
Heart.
heart, like as if he has a place, Thomas has a place in Kat's heart. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's how I interpreted it.
The same way.
Yeah, like she was saying, yeah, Jacob, my heart is here. I think she's saying it more in general. And then he's like, maybe I can, yeah, like he's being flirty / romantic.
And then even the way they left that was like, something is not connecting, guys. The dots are not connecting completely. And then also, like what you were saying about how like the Lingermore party, like that was it. It wasn't that bad. It was the same thing with the hole in the wall.
Mm,
Elliot, I get in real life, like what happened could be really traumatic. Like if that really happened in real life, the girl that you loved, she was about to run away with you, but then her fiance shows up
yeah,
and you end up causing her harm.
right,
But he doesn't know she's pregnant yet.
right.
But he feels like but also he's upset because like he almost just erased. And that's what Nick doesn't even know. When Nick says that Elliot liked having a secret and being superior. What did you think about that? Like when Nick at the pond, which was really cruel of Nick to say, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't, I did, I didn't fully understand that fight because and maybe it's just our perspective, is I really view Elliot and what he said was it tormented him knowing all this stuff. Like, I don't think it never to me came across as he felt superior. It just always felt like his life was stuck waiting for
Yeah.
this to pass so he could like move on. So
Yeah.
that scene kind of felt like an unnecessary insert. Like, I think I could have accepted it more if Nick was just upset that it was a secret that he kept. Like, why
Yeah.
didn't you tell me? This affected me. I don't know. I didn't love it.
Yeah. I didn't either. Saying that it reminds you of Victor. I don't know if that was just like
That
because they've been
felt
listening to Deck the Hallmark say that Elliot's a villain, so they're playing into Elliot being a villain. Like, but it didn't connect.
No, and I didn't like that reference because I'm like, we also don't know Victor that well, which I'm sad because I really thought this season
Yeah.
we would have more of Elliot's
More
story.
backstory of Elliot. We don't have
Yeah.
enough yet. Like we still don't, it's still not clear. Like, was he a drunk? Did he beat
Right?
Elliot? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't, and also like the reason that Elliot put the hole in the wall and kept it there, I didn't feel 100% connect either.
Yeah.
And why after all this time, I know that Kat like is now BFFs with Susanna, but why would she even think that Susanna could time travel?
Oh my
Like,
gosh. I literally was like, this is stupid because we know the law of the pond.
yeah, I
Like,
know. I know this is
why
going into dead ends because it was the same thing when Kat is talking to Elliot
it
and
really lost.
mid-conversation realizes,
Yes.
oh my gosh, Alice, I need to help Alice. She feels like she's gonna be erased. But
Yeah.
you've been jumping and getting to the 1800s. Why would
Why
you
would
think
you
it would
think
take you
it's
to the 2000s?
I,
I mean, I
yes.
feel like we need to move on. Do we just need to move on to
Yes.
dead ends and what we didn't like? And this is
I
also like plot holes, continuity issues. Go ahead, jump in.
okay. Literally, I feel like all common sense went out the window at the back half of this episode.
Okay.
Okay, like literally, I was like, I do not understand how she thinks Susanna is going to time travel. I also did not think that she was going to go to the 90s. And then also, it felt rushed. It just had no depth to it. Like,
Yeah, like, what do you mean? All of a sudden, Jacob can come out of hiding because Thomas paid a debt to Cyrus for full services. Like, what
yes.
does that even mean?
And they
And
were
everything's
waiting
hunky dory now.
they were waiting at the tree. Like, how did they know
Yeah, right
when
when she
she
came
was
out.
gonna? Yeah. So that actually I forgot about that. But one of my biggest plot holes, and we've said this, is like I were you surprised the scene by the fire with Kat and Susanna?
Yeah.
Because
It felt abrupt.
it felt abrupt. I also thought for a second it was going to be romantic. Like I was not following
Yes.
along. I was like,
I
wait,
thought hashtag Katana's showing up.
that's exactly what I was happening. I didn't, but even that confused me because
Yeah.
I did not realize how closely of a relationship they had developed. That did not come across to me throughout
Translate.
this
Yeah.
whole season. Through the whole season one, you felt the relationship between Kat, teen Kat and Alice growing.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not feel a relationship between Susanna and Kat growing the way that I did. I felt like Susanna and Kat were allies and on a mission for the common good of Jacob, but I didn't
Mhm.
really feel this kindred spirit growing between the two of them. So
Yeah.
that scene
When
really
I
threw
look,
me off.
it's true. I'm sorry, cut you off.
No, so it was just like that stuff really like felt, oh, I hate to say it, but feels like a season two. Like I hate to
Yeah,
even
it
say
feels
that
like a sequel
it feels like a
effect.
sequel, and I'm sad because I don't want it to, but it's just like things weren't as organic as I would have liked them to be. Anyways, that
Yeah.
was my biggest plot hole is like I didn't see that relationship, friendship or romantic, whatever way Hallmark is gonna put this. It it just felt abrupt to me. Like I had no idea that this was
Yeah.
going on.
That's hilarious. I um I feel like in their conversation, when you go back and you look at the writing between Kat and Susanna, I was like, okay, when I think back to their lines, I could see
Mhm.
how they were trying to portray that, but there just wasn't enough to back it up.
No.
And especially when Susanna was asking Kat about her time, and Kat was like, well, our time is complicated, messy, and depressing. I was like, and Susanna's like, oh, it sounds a lot like our time. I was like, I feel like that seems really unfair from someone in 2024 to say to someone in 1814.
Right?
Not that our world isn't crazy. But my goodness. I had more in this segment. Like, I was disappointed that Rebecca really did just bury the shoes like that. And there wasn't more to that. Like, it wasn't found until, Cat. And for Cat, it was just right there at the surface of the dirt. So, like, is it going to
Right.
be the same for the key? Like, the key was just sitting at the surface
Right.
of the soil by the pond for Cat to drop and Jacob to pick up, young, like 8-year-old Jacob to pick
Mhm.
up. Like, just doesn't make any sense. Also, there hasn't been any school scenes for Alice or Elliot at all the entire season. They've never gone to school. Like, we
You're
had some
right.
of that in season one. I'm like, what is happening? Is he gonna get fired? Is she gonna like not graduate? Like, what is
It's
happening? Because
hilarious.
I'm like anxious for them. Because do you ever have those dreams about like you missed school
Yes.
or like you forgot to
Forget
study for the
something.
test or
Yeah.
like everyone's turning in the actually my dad has these more than I do.
That's
But did you
funny.
ever have you're a musician. Did you ever have those dreams where it's like you didn't memorize the piece? I have those dreams like I'm playing a classical piano piece and it's an audition or a recital or performance and I didn't memorize it.
No, but I used to get dreams a lot where I was getting married again, and it was my wedding, but I didn't know it was my wedding, and I'd show
What?
up. I have that dream a lot.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like everyone knows it's my wedding, but except for me, and I show up and they're like, "You got to walk down the aisle," and I'm wearing like sweatshirt and my hair is a mess.
Is that an event planner nightmare? Like what
I
is that
guess so.
about?
I have no idea, but
Oh
that's
my goodness.
yeah,
I have never had that one. That's
that's
so
funny.
fascinating. Anyways, I was anxious for them because I'm like, you're missing school.
Yeah, literally, right?
And I already said this. I don't get how Dell is supposed to get Jacob's message, but more
No.
important than that, I'm so disappointed. Wouldn't you tell your mom if you
Yes.
found your brother who's like
Yes,
grieving
yes, yes.
and like why are we waiting so long?
I
Like
know.
and if Nick remembers Alice now, then what about Brady, Dell, and Monica? Like
Oh,
the
wait,
fact that memories are fickle is not working for
they
me.
finally addressed that though. Like that was something, remember we questioned a lot, like how do people not recognize? So I think they probably that felt like something that they had heard from the viewers and that the writers needed to address. Don't you think?
I okay, but that doesn't work for me because it can't just be like, oh, now we say she's Alice, so now Brady, Del, and Monica are going to be like, hi, Al. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, no, it has to be like,
Yeah.
what is it? Is it Men in Black that have that stick to erase
Yes.
memories, or
Yeah.
like it has to be something like that, or like a specific word. Like once you say that word, then it's like, oh my gosh, all those memories come back. Like,
Yes.
this is not okay. Fix
Yeah.
it, please. You can still fix it. I need you to fix it. Those are my dead ends. Do you have any others?
No. I mean, I
Okay,
resonate with all the ones that you just said.
the way we see it is where we get into observations and theories because, you know, everyone's different observations make for different theories. Because, for instance, in today's recap, I still had a question of, did Finn time travel or not? And in the
Yes, no?
recap, it referred to, but that's still unclear if the dog actually did time travel. Because it's not like, okay,
Oh,
if you're going to tell me that he definitively time traveled, then I needed to see him in the 1800s also.
you're right. Yeah, you're right. We don't know that for sure yet.
So then who or what can also time travel? Right? So,
Not
I mean, this
Tylenol.
is
We know that. And not Susanna. So,
which, right? So like make it make sense.
okay.
Go ahead. What do you got
So,
here?
because we're talking about time traveling, who can time travel? My prediction for the
Mhm,
last episode.
mhm.
So, is that Dell is going to time travel. They're going to tell Dell, and she's going to go to the pond. But we still, what about that figure from episode 1?
I know.
So, what if this, okay, go with me.
Wait, what? Oh, season 2 episode. The you're talking about the bushes.
Yes.
The person in the
Okay.
bushes. Yes. Uh-huh.
What if they time travel to
Mhm,
another time
mhm.
and Colton is also there?
See,
The
I think
pond
that's
leads you
yeah,
to where it wants you to go, or whatever the
or where
quote
you
that they
need to
where
go.
you need to go.
I listen. I just there's so much.
You don't like that one. Okay, here's my other one.
Okay, go for it.
Um, well, this is more of a question.
Okay.
We also don't have who painted the picture. Now, was Thomas's paint a red herring? And is the picture really painted by Susanna?
Very possible. Also very possible.
Because she was in that white nightgown, which her and Susanna are always in those
Always
white.
in their white nightgowns.
Anyways,
True.
those are my only predictions because I'm like, what could possibly happen? Dell either meets Jacob. I
Mhm.
guess Jacob comes back. And then where's Colton and all this? Yeah.
Yeah, either Jacob has to go to 2024 or Dell has to go to the 1800s.
Yeah, there's no other option
to
at this
see
point.
Jacob, like, or they don't. My
No.
fear is that they're going to start a completely new storyline. And none of those. That's a fear of mine. Also, as you guys have known, I've always thought, even though maybe I haven't said this very clearly, but I have said since season 1 that I felt like Dell was the White Witch for a long time. That I thought Dell was the White Witch, and I
Right.
thought that maybe, even after we see Kat as the White Witch, I still feel like Dell could be a villain. Like I still, or
Oh.
not like, you know how villains
Yes.
end up being villains. It's like it starts off, you don't start off being like, I'm gonna be the villain, I'm malicious. There's always like hurt, and over time and things get twisted. Because I think that Dell, I still wanted her to have time traveled already. And she realizes that she couldn't change anything. And she actually made things so bad that she's like erasing it and not talking about it. And still in the know. Like, I thought this whole time that she knew that Kat and Alice have been time traveling because even Brady, this is the first episode out of season 1 and 2 where someone is like, Kat, you're wet. Is it raining?
Yeah.
Like, we're in the 19th episode. Someone else notices that Kat or Alice is wet. Like,
Yeah.
other than Elliot, who knows that they time travel. Like, how has Dell not seen them wet this whole time? She has. So
true.
how does she not know? Like, she has to know. And the fact that this episode made me go, oh my gosh, does she really not know? Like, how is that even possible?
You're right.
Also, I forgot a dead end, and I haven't sat down to do the math. I feel like in the interwebs, I probably should have found someone else's math out there. But people are saying that the math isn't mathing for
Mm.
Alice's age. Like, we're confused on how old Alice is because she was supposed to be 15 in 2022. So how old is she now? And then also I
Oh.
realized if Spencer is a year older than Alice, then Monica left a year old at home to party at Lingermore. She left a year old son at home to party at Lingermore, which, isn't out of the realm of possibility.
Huh.
Like, I had kids young, and so I didn't party, but I could see that happening. Um,
Interesting.
some of the math just, like, isn't mathing, and so it leaves for a lot of questions. Like, um, did Dell steal Colton from Evelyn?
Oh. Mm. Yeah, because she
Like
did say
when
for Colton.
Yeah, like when Evelyn
Yes.
says,
That's a good theory.
like, it's so nice that you have memories of Colton around you. Like, what is she referring to? The kids? Like, what was that other thing that Evelyn did, which I feel like, anyway,
Evelyn's not, no, they're not related. I was gonna say, what if Evelyn is Colton's sister?
there's all kind of weird, there's actually
Theories.
theories out there like that. No, there are, or like, anyway, so many incest and too many connections between these actors or not actors, characters that I feel
Yeah.
like we're probably thinking way too deep than is actually what's happening. Girls Gone Hallmark, that's Megan and Wendy at the
Mhm.
Girls Gone Hallmark podcast, thinks that Evelyn's son, the one who's buying the land in 2024, could be Thomas.
Oh my gosh, because we did see him in the
I
future.
wish, I know that was silence, but I wish you would have seen
My face.
Lala's face come alive, like, oh, if those wheels were really turning.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
first I was like, wait, Tom, no way. I love that theory
me
because
too.
I do think he can time travel.
And it's really sad because I wanted to think that Dell was time traveling and that Elliot time traveled in that short stint where, Kat
Right.
and Alice weren't.
But
But
I don't think
at
so.
this episode, Megan and Wendy said the same. Like, I don't think Elliot was time traveling. They didn't need more of 2007. I was like, I can't disagree more.
Yeah,
I need more of the 90s scenes. Like
I
season
know.
3, if it doesn't have the 90s, I'm gonna be really disappointed. I feel like
I
you have to
know.
go back and there's so many questions because we're
You
gonna
do.
recap all the lingering questions at the end of this segment. But if Elliot hasn't been time traveling, do you think he knows of other time travelers? I was hoping he did, but then the preview kind of
No,
squashed that.
I don't think he does. I really think that Elliot's just a tormented soul in the way like he's only knows about Kat and Alice and like just dealing with that. I really, as time goes on, I feel like he's less and less of a villain.
Okay, so then Hallmarkies podcast, when in their review of episode 6 and 7, was like, what if Jacob knew of other time travelers? Like, what if Jacob saw Alice
Hmm.
jump in and out of the pond first?
Hmm.
And then he decided to jump in the pond because he had already met Alice. So what if he had observed that?
Oh. Wow,
I
that's a
know, right?
mind trip, but yes.
Okay, it gets even weirder.
Okay.
This is a fan theory from the Way Home fans and discussion Facebook group. This is from Karen with a Y.
Okay.
Susanna says she won't burden Jacob with the marriage of convenience. What if she ends up with Cyrus and Casey is their child?
Yes,
What?
to me that actually
And Susanna, okay, because Susanna knows Casey is different and therefore sends them forward to Cat through the pond with a
I
father who lived in the 1800s but clearly can't present a donation check on Founders Day, so sends Casey. That is like
I could get behind that theory.
interesting, huh?
Yeah, totally.
Another one. This is the ones with like the weird connections between the characters. This is from Kathy in the same Facebook group.
Okay.
She is pondering. Love that pun.
Wondering.
Elliot is weird when Susanna's name is brought up.
Yes.
Could Susanna be Elliot's ex-wife? Because we haven't seen her yet. And so other people are thinking Elliot jumped. So maybe he jumped and went back and saved
But
Susanna
wait,
from Cyrus.
that would be incest.
100%. There's so many incest theories. Listen, this is so in the preview for the next episode, we know that Susanna left clues for Kat to find. So I'm thinking that the story that we saw ripped out of Jacob is in that the stone in the fireplace.
Right.
Maybe they communicate through that. Elliot is telling Alice in the preview, what if others could time travel? So I think we're going to meet other time travelers. And then Alice is telling, I don't know if it's Elliot or Kat, like, this is why the pond keeps sending me back. So apparently we're going to find that out. Apparently Evan Williams is saying, like, who plays Elliot, is saying, like, it's nothing that you expect in the finale.
Better not be.
So,
and I hope it's longer
right?
than an hour.
It better answer all the questions, but
All the
then,
questions.
give us good, like, in a way that gives us more questions, in a way that, like, satisfies with the original The Way Home magic.
Yes.
Do you have anything else before I recap all of our lingering questions?
No, I don't.
Is there something magical about the horse?
Mm.
What's magical about the soil? What's the deal with the loose stone in the fireplace? Who was in those freaking bushes?
Yes, that's my biggest one.
Who painted Catherine, and how did the painting get into the Lingermore in Evelyn's possession? Was Rebecca the one who was the old lady at the pond saying the pond calls to you, to Jacob? Who is Noah? Who is Claire? And from the first season, I'm still wondering, what did Colton mean when he said he was going to explain everything tomorrow to Dell? Like,
No.
we still have so many questions.
So
I really
many.
need you to answer them. I really need you to answer
Next
them.
week. We need them. How can we live a
because
year with unanswered questions?
I feel sad because
Mhm.
I feel like there's too many questions left, and I don't actually care who's together anymore because things aren't connecting, and it's kind of like Sam Bishop didn't come back this episode. Noah.
Yeah,
Was
Noah was
Byron
gone.
really just a throwaway character? Like, and why did you give me the Nick and Alice moment when I didn't need it? Like, I didn't need
I wonder
didn't
what
need
fan
it.
thoughts are on Nick and Alice. Like, is it just you and I? And is everyone else like into the closure? Like,
No, for sure not. Even Deck the Hallmark was like, because it was a 90-second conversation. Actually, who was saying, Deck the Hallmark said that they've been having this fans discussion. Not Dan and Brand didn't know about it, apparently. It was Aaron, the producer, who said, like, in the Facebook group, there's this theory or just this conversation about how that 90-second conversation between Nick and Alice is the most healthy relationship. Like, they hope that he comes back when she turns 18. Okay, listen, guys, like, I'm losing interest, so I started watching. Did I tell you I watched the program? It's on
No.
Netflix.
No.
About the you guys, we love a good true crime, especially cult documentaries, if you've been following us for a while.
The program? This is a cult documentary?
The program, well, it's not a cult. Well,
looking it up right now.
So the program is about like schools.
Oh, that one.
Like boarding
yes.
schools. Yes, which I appreciate that Paris Hilton, shout out to Paris Hilton,
Talked about,
who shed light on the one in Utah that she was in, but this one is like a different group that it's still going on.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't talk about this. Like, when you are exposing things that need to be exposed, because it has to be, this girl had receipts. Like, this school had signed testimonies of abuse signed by the abusers. All the paperwork, like, they've gone back to the buildings to collect the paperwork. This girl's left 18 years ago. This has been a documentary making for a long time, yet the LLCs continue to pop up of the same program, the same founder. Is that crazy?
That is unbelievable.
It's good to manage your expectations when you're exposure, because then there's the one that's called Quiet on Set, which the Nick and Alice thing kind of made me all weird. Did you hear about that one? Quiet on Set? I haven't seen it yet.
Yes,
I so
on Discovery Plus. Yeah, I want to watch that one.
That's about the Nickelodeon exposures. You guys, these exposures are happening like left and right. That's, I think, because that documentary just came out this week, and Nick and Alice having this conversation made me incredibly uncomfortable. Anyways, I think we need to wrap this up.
Oh man.
I'm going to end on a positive.
Oh, please. Yes.
On the on this conversation about cults, Bethany Joy Lenz has a book coming out
Oh, yeah.
in October called Dinner for Vampires, subtitle Life on a Cult TV Show, in parentheses, while also in an actual cult. Bethany Joy Lenz, thank you so much. I can't imagine how hard it would have been to write a book like that. But I know it's going to change lives. So thank you for writing it. Cannot wait for October. If you want to hear episodes where we reviewed movies, Hallmark movies that she's in, we did A Biltmore Christmas. Did we do A Biltmore Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay. A Biltmore Christmas, 5-Star Christmas are the ones that we reviewed. But I saved hers with Tyler Hynes' Unexpected Christmas. We still have to do that. So we're gonna end on a high note because otherwise it was just too much. But I cannot. But I'm like, I still have glimmers in anticipating with my kids to watch together the finale.
Thanks so much for breaking script with us. Please share this episode on your socials and tag at the Breaking Script Podcast. Follow and hit the notification bell button so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't yet, please rate and review an Apple Podcast so we can spread more Hallmark glimmers with the world. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.